Good afternoon. It's Friday lunchtime, and we are back in our usual Friday lunchtime slot this pre-season
Mhm.
on our Red Tinted Glasses YouTube channel as we look back on what has been a busy week for Aberdeen Football Club and preview Sunday's final Premier Sports Group Stage game against Raith Rovers. The Dons made it 3 out of 3 in the group stages as they ran riot at fourth bank. Calum, you were there, and you'll be giving us your thoughts on that fixture later on in the episode. We'll also look back at the transfer news ahead of the game on Sunday against Raith and maybe look into what it could mean for our opening game against Celtic in a couple of weeks' time. But you were at Jerry Cinnamon, of course, last
Mhm.
weekend. You have a good time at that?
It was excellent. Yes, spent a very long time in Hampden and wasn't disappointed. So it makes a change.
Yeah, I know. It looked a good gig from what I saw on Snapchat and Instagram. You might have had a belter of a time at Jerry Cinnamon, but I'm sure you had just as much of a belter time at Fourth Bank, as the Dons continued there to canter towards the knockout stages of the Premier Sports Cup. There, that's my two. I'm done for just now. My Facebook memories brought back trips to Ventspils and Soroki Brijeg this week. Both of them were particularly hot trips. I'm sure it was quite a pleasant evening in Stirling on Tuesday night. Did you enjoy yourself?
It was excellent. I mean, Stirling and sunny Europe, basically the same thing. But no, it was absolutely lovely. A very pleasant evening. Wasn't too hot by the time the game rolled around. Had a nice McFlurry prior to cool myself down. It was great. The 2 trains and the lift was worth it, which seems to be what I'm doing to get to these games this summer so far.
Yeah, trains, planes, and anything else. Just like a European trip, I guess. But
Aye.
it was a five-star performance in that first half. As I said, the Aberdeen really running riot against, as Keith texted me during the game, a suicidal high line from the Stirling Albion defence. Allowing Aberdeen to get in behind with relative ease. Vinny got us going with the opening goal before Christian Ramirez made it 3-3 in competitive action this season, getting us 2-0 up. Matty Kennedy continuing his fine form in pre-season with a really impressive free kick into the top bins to put us 3-0 up before some unselfish work from Johnny Hayes set up Ross McCrory to make it 4. It's 2-2 for him and 3 assists for Johnny Hayes. A really impressive start for him, amongst others as well. And then Vicente put the icing on the cake, or maybe the toffee sauce on the pudding, we should say, making it 5-0 just before half time. Calum, how impressed were you with our attacking play in that first 45?
Very. It's bizarre seeing an Aberdeen team, regardless of the opposition, actually put teams to the sword and take their chances. We were pretty cutthroat in these games so far. I mean, other than Newman making a couple decent saves in the Peterhead game, it's basically been hit the target. There's a good chance where we're hitting the back of the net, and that continued again. But not only were we clinical, some of the movement, the interlinking between the forward players. Oh, it was an absolute joy to watch and a fantastic scene to do so in with the sun beaming down on Fourth Bank. It was just a very, very pleasant evening all round. But I was very, very impressed with the movement, the link-up play, everything, and actually taking our chances. Long may that continue.
Yeah, that was one thing that impressed me in the highlights was, like you said, the link up play, the movement off the ball from players. It was really impressive, and obviously we've got a lot of you joining the show today, interacting, whether it be on YouTube, and Paul Reiki bringing up this point saying that we've been playing well, the new players look exciting, but hope we can continue that good play with better quality teams in the league. And I suppose, well, you're one for getting carried away in particular. I think it's fair to say is that yes, we can be excited by what we are seeing just now, but we maybe do need to measure that against the quality of opposition. But I think one point that I made after Tuesday night was, I don't know if at points last season I would have felt confident of sweeping aside Stirling in the fashion that we did on Tuesday, but also I think this was kind of the plan in a sense that Stephen Glass had, playing this sort of attacking football, but it never quite
Mhm.
came off, and we're actually seeing it come off now.
Yeah, well, we actually have signed not all of the players. We're still obviously in the market for some. We've signed the players that are capable of playing in this fashion, which is maybe where Stephen Glass went wrong, playing out from the back with David Bates and Declan Gallagher. Maybe not the best idea, but it's definitely encouraging. Obviously, yes, we do need to remind ourselves of the opposition. Something I've been struggling to do, essentially just been getting very, very carried away. But regardless, if we can come through this group unscathed, including the game against Raith, I think that's a very, very good sign of the professionalism that this team have got. It'd be easy to be complacent. It'd be easy for things to go wrong. See Hibernian. That's an early one to get it in there. So I'm still impressed, regardless if this is not where we want to be or whatever, and it is, slightly poorer opposition, but it's still a very, very good time. We've got a professionalism to put these teams away and keeping clean sheets as well, just for confidence, if nothing else.
Absolutely. And I think it was the first goal, if I'm right, that it came about. We went on an attack from a Stirling corner, which was maybe not dealt with very comfortably by Roos and Stewart before Johnny Hayes having to hike it off the line that started the attack. It did get broken down, but the second phase, if you will, resulted in us going 1-0 up. We're speaking so positively about the forward play we're seeing. We've got attacking players in good form. Ramirez 3-3. Vinny seems to have confidence flowing through his veins, as does Matty Kennedy this season. So we won't be getting anybody phoning into Sports Sound currently asking for Matty Kennedy. But defensively, Calum, have we been tested enough yet ahead of that Celtic game? I know we'll probably speak about this more next week, but for me, that's still maybe a bit of a concern.
Yeah, I don't think we have really been tested and at all, really. I mean, other than sort of cleaning that off the line on the other night and a few sort of counter-attacks where Stirling probably lacked some quality in the final third to get that final ball. We've not been tested at all. I think, although Raith, once again in the Championship, we saw what they did to us last season. I think this will be a bit more of an indicator of what we can do. And certainly maybe against teams towards the bottom half, which hopefully we won't be in this time. And we'll get tested defensively more often. Obviously, there's Ethan Ross and Dario Zanata who caused us problems last season. The latter, it'll be more of a test, and I think we'll get more of a bearing of where we are, sort of with how we deal with the test of Raith.
Yeah, I totally agree. The second 45 didn't bring any goals, but it wasn't for a want of trying. Vicente hit the post. Duke came on to make his Aberdeen debut at half-time, hitting both the post and bar. I'm glad you've got that Benfica top on in dedication. And I'm glad the chairman tuned into our last episode to hear Joe's correct pronunciation that is Duke, not Duck. What did you make of his debut?
First of all, massive credit to Joe. Extremely knowledgeable, very, very informative. And for once, I enjoyed tuning in as a viewer rather than being involved with it, and it was fantastic. So thank you very much to Joe for that. We're this in tribute to you if you are tuning in. Also impressed with Duke. He seems like an entertainer, a little bit of a maverick, and I quite like it. When he first came in, I thought, bloody hell, he's huge. But obviously, he's not quite in his peak physical condition right now, having had little to no pre-season. But he still looks like he had a fantastic turn of pace, a little bit of trickery where maybe at times he wasn't sure what he was going to do, and then that meant nobody else knew what he was going to do, and then it still came off regardless. As Joe mentioned, maybe his finishing needs a little bit of work, which we saw, admittedly, but looks like a man that's going to give his all, regardless. I mean, we saw him fluff his lines with that chance and then still somehow turn it into an overhead kick and then get up to take another chance as well, which also went off the woodwork. And then obviously through on goal, he looks like he likes to move down the channels, which is excellent. Something that Ramirez maybe isn't the best at. Don't know about Miofsky yet. So another option, excellent. Still very young. I think still very, very raw, going by what we've seen already, but plenty of time to improve, and let's hope he gets the opportunities for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to go back to that conversation I had with Joe, that maybe he is more suited to that impact sub role. Certainly just now until he gets used to Scottish football, maybe up to speed with the game. and I did like Steve Tosh's comment on Red TV saying he's going to be that exciting player. I think you just kind of touched on it there, because he doesn't know what he's going to be doing, which means we don't know what he's going to be doing, which makes him exciting to watch. And if you haven't watched or listened to that episode with myself and Joe, you can, of course, go back to tune in to hear what Joe had to say on Luis Lopez signing for Aberdeen. As Calum said, it is really informative and has been very well received. So thank you all for the feedback. Joe's also been very honoured kind of by the thoughts that people have had towards his input on that episode as well. And of course, if you are new to the channel, maybe just joined us in recent months, you might have missed, we have also spoke to Steve Tosh as well, so you can find that in our back catalogues as well. Former player interview if you're needing some Dons content to pass the time between now and next weekend's game. But Calum, there wasn't any goals in that second half, but Jim Goodwin was impressed with the professionalism that the team showed. As you said, maintained that clean sheet, still created plenty of chances. Admittedly, he did call it a bit boring at times. Would you maybe echo that thought?
I would say it was I think just if you contrast that with the first half, yeah, in comparison, boring. But when I was sitting there enjoying the game in the sun, still wasn't complaining at all, because we were still playing some very, very good football. Just unfortunate, obviously, not to end up with a goal. It would have been nice if we did add another couple just for entertainment value and goal difference value as well. Boring as harsh. I can see where he's coming from, though, but I think that's how often do you see it when teams go in sort of 3, 4, 5 up at halftime? I mean, you don't see that very often. But when they come out in the second half, it is a little bit more lax, and they're not going sort of hell to the metal. Is that the phrase? I don't know.
It's hell to leather, but I'm sure someone will keep it right.
I don't know. It's been a bad one, and I'm just going to move on now.
Well, we will move on. We'll go back to the attacking performances. I want to go back to what Goodwin had to say after the game. Kind of, touching on the point you made about goal difference, because of course that could come into play in regards seeding for the next stage if we're to progress either as a second, one of the best second place teams. Jesus, that's one to trip you up, or of course a group winner as well. Jim Goodwin was quick to praise Christian Ramirez for his work ethic in the game and also how he's been throughout the start of this season. He looks almost a different man to what we saw at the end of last season. He's got a bit of energy about him. He looks happy with his football, and he looks to have a good understanding with both Johnny Hayes and Vicente Bissauin, which for me is a really exciting prospect going into the new campaign, the league campaign anyway, because we've got a striker that likes to stay inside the box. You were speaking there about Lopez maybe likes to go out to the channel. Ramirez doesn't as such, but when Ramirez is in the box, give him a chance. I know he fluffed his lines for Bissauin second, but 9 times out of 10 he knows where the back of the net is, and if he's got that understanding with the Vicente and the wide players and Johnny Hayes, that can only be good for us going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It is great to see. I mean, he looks sort of well rested and happy as well. He went hell for leather with that finish, and Aberdeen failed to put pedal to the metal. I've got it. I've got them now sorted. But it's good to see him sort of forming that link up now that Vinny's had a pre-season. Johnny's a bit further forward once again, probably where he is more comfortable. And more natural, and more importantly as well. It's a very, very good sign. He looks good, and it's even better now that we've got competition as well, because he knows if he's not performing or whatever, then behind him's waiting Luis Lopez or maybe Bojan Miovski. We'll see where sort of he fits in, but it's certainly a very, very good sign. He got a little bit of love from the fans as well when he scored, which I'm sure you'll probably appreciate. And Vinny's celebration, that was super duper cute with him, wasn't it? After he scored.
There's been a lot of wholesome content coming out from the club's social media in recent days, and it is great to see. I think Vicente commented on the fact that the team feels like a family just now, everybody playing for each other, and I think you can almost see that in that. Well, certainly that celebration with Ramirez and himself, and just there does seem to be that good togetherness amongst the squad. Obviously, there was question marks around that last season, October, November time under Stephen Glass, but that doesn't certainly seem to be the case just now anyway.
Hmm. Well, yeah, no, certainly, and I think you saw that when that goal was scored, because Scales obviously sent the ball through Hayes, then to Ramirez. Ross McCrory and I think Mason Hancock both. I think Ross McCrory went straight to Liam Scales to sort of be like, "That's brilliant, fantastic pass," and Mason Hancock turned around and acknowledged it as well. And then we saw after the game as well, sort of the togetherness coming towards the fans, feeling like a family. As Vinny said, it's exactly what we want. I think I said to you, there was a while last season, towards back in the season, I was genuinely disliked a lot of them. And I'd just been so fed up. I was sick of the sight of them. Whereas now I'm excited again. I'm feeling in love with them all again. And it looks fantastic. And also with Miovski arriving, that little video they put out today, the bromance between those two that seems to be sparking up already, obviously having played together previously. I'm loving it. And feelings are good. And it's unusual. So I'm just trying to be a little bit cautious with it, but it's very hard not to right now.
Like I said, you're the one that struggles to contain your optimism the most on this show. We should really speak about Matty Kennedy again, because he has been putting in performances that merit being spoken about. An excellent free kick for the third goal, as I mentioned, and a player that maybe some people think would have not a sort of a backwards role, but maybe not so much involvement this season if we get another couple of players in, certainly on the wing. But certainly in pre-season, again, you maybe want to caveat that against the opposition that we're playing, but he's putting in performances that is going to give Jim Goodwin something to think about when it comes to that game against Celtic.
Absolutely. I mean, I never thought the answer to far as Matty Kennedy would be putting the ball in the top corner from a free kick absolutely perfectly. But he looks like he's playing with confidence, and sort of that niggly injury is maybe being sorted, so that's not in the back of his mind now. I doubted how big a role he would maybe play. To be fair, and having not seen too much of him over the past couple of seasons, I probably wasn't the only one. I don't know for sure, obviously. But he's proving me wrong, and probably a lot of others as well. And it is good to see. He looks fantastic, running at defenders, carrying the ball forward. A little bit trickery. His delivery looks better. And if he can put a free kick in the top corner like that, regardless of the opposition, it's not going to matter who's in goals.
Yeah, well, I would like to know Far's Matty Kennedy, because that is not the Matty Kennedy we've been seeing for the last couple of seasons anyway so far, but long may it continue. Another player that has also impressed is, of course, Liam Scales. You mentioned the ball that he played to Johnny Hayes for that Christian Ramirez goal, a brilliant bit of skill there. Obviously, there's the flag that has been widely seen on social media about no Celtic loans, and I suppose, well, you can understand that saying given the quality that he's shown, because with the way he's performed so far, we'd be wanting him on a permanent, not just a loan deal.
Yes, well, definitely. Not sure if that was the intention of the banner, but it's definitely plugged that across. I can, if we could sign Liam Scales permanently, I'd be delighted. It would just be really, really frustrating if he does, develop for us, carries on this fine form, goes back, plays for Celtic, starter for them. That would be very, very annoying. I would love if we can get this tied up. However, right now, obviously, all the cards in Celtic's hands. And if they weren't willing to do it a month ago or whatever, how willing are they going to be wanting to do it permanently now? I suppose it depends what sort of fee we're willing to cough up.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose, well, they have just signed another centre back, but how willing are they going to be doing it between now and the game on the 31st of July? Probably not at all, because obviously that would give us our solid centre back pairings. And I suppose we'll see what happens come the game on Sunday against Raith Rovers. We've put ourselves in a good position. Jim Goodwin also, after the game, saying that this is a competition he takes seriously. He won all 4 group stage games with St Mirren last season, of course, looking to do the same again this season with Aberdeen. And as you mentioned, Hibs have shown that's not so easy. St Johnstone, St Mirren, Livingston also struggling to qualify as well. It's good that we've got that manager in place that is taking this competition seriously, and also a squad, I suppose, that is also treating this competition with the respect it deserves.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we've been calling out, for winning cup competitions for years upon years, and it's good to see they are taking it seriously when we are involved at the earliest possible stage. And I absolutely love to go 4 from 4, but I feel like absolutely nobody would love that even more than Jim Goodwin. And I think that would be a testament to the work that he's done so far, given where we were when we came in, to then go and win all 4 cups games in a cup that we don't want to be in the stages right now. And if we can go and get seeded, I think that would be an excellent sign of intent for going forward, regardless of the opposition that we've played.
Yeah, 100%. And of course, we do look to go 4 from 4 on Sunday as Raith Rovers make their first of 2 visits inside 6 days to the Granite City, of course, opening their championship campaign at Cove Rangers next weekend. Aberdeen may be looking for a bit of revenge, as you say, Calum, after last season's defeat in Kirkcaldy. Raith travelling to Aberdeen on the back of a 0-0 draw with Dumbarton, but picking up the bonus point after beating the Suns 3-2 on penalties, meaning it is a winner-take-all in terms of group win, albeit Raith do need to win by 2 clear goals to top the group ahead of Aberdeen. There's a lot of question marks, I suppose, Calum, on the Aberdeen side of things going into this game. Do we treat this game as we've done the previous 3, go full strength, or do we rest players with that opening game against Celtic in mind? You're shaking your head.
A week of rest. They're professional athletes. They don't need to be rested this weekend. We need to go on and win it. We need to finish top of the group and ideally get the goal difference as well that sees us seeded as well, because I think that could be important. Obviously, avoiding the teams that are in Europe would be ideal, because if we go through all this only to get Celtic away or Rangers away next season, I mean, whilst the trip might be fun for pre-match, I mean, I don't know how enjoyable the game's going to be, and that might ruin things. Although we will maybe need to beat them at some stage if we are going to win this tournament. It would be nice to get in the next round a little bit of an easier draw. So go hell for leather. Same team again. They're still not, completely match sharp, I'm sure. This is another chance for it. Another chance to impress. Another chance to entertain. Another chance to sell a few more season tickets, perhaps, before the start of the season. Let's do it. Another comfortable win and a clean sheet. That's what I'm wanting.
Interesting, but it's funny because that was something. I'll come on to it just now because you've just mentioned it. It was going to be a point I was going to bring up later on. Was, does being seeded for the next round matter? Of course, as you said, it's the 3 best group winners join the 5 European teams in being seeded for the knockout stage, and then of course the first team through to the next round from the group stages through on 10 points. We've currently also got Cali, Arbroath, and Dundee all, like ourselves, on 9 points. However, both Cali and Arbroath currently sitting with a goal difference of +6. Dundee, who take on Forfar this weekend, with a goal difference of +7. Now, as Paul Donaldson said in the comments on YouTube, we actually will know the permutations to be one of the best seeded teams before, obviously, given the fact that our group stage game is the last game this weekend. So that's a good point. But, the point you make is we're going to have to potentially play Celtic or Rangers at some point to win the trophy. It tends to be what happens. Why not do it early on in the season when maybe their match sharpness isn't quite there? I suppose people will just want to get the easiest draws possible and get on that cup run. So I'm sure that's the way Jim Goodwin is looking at it. But
absolutely. I mean,
sorry.
I'm going to make the point that if it was at home early on, that is very, very favourable. But we all know that if we are going to face them, it's going to be in Glasgow. There's no chance we're going to get them up to Tawdry.
There's no chance the microwave will let them have an away day early on.
Exactly.
One point, we were speaking about team news. Obviously, you want us to go strong as possible. With Scales being out for the Celtic game, David Bates possibly on the move. We'll come to that point a little bit later on in the show. Do we move Ross McCrory back into central defence for the game, or do you think there's another central defender possibly on his way into Pittodrie, Calum?
I think for the Celtic game, McCrory will probably move back. I think that's what we saw a little bit of against Stirling Albion, just a little bit of them two getting used to playing alongside each other, McCrory and Stewart. I think probably for the Raith game, we stick as is right now. But I suppose maybe depending on how it's going in terms of if we're in front or comfortable, then maybe you will see McCrory move alongside. So I would like to see us bring in another centre back. Certainly, if David Bates leaves, and really before, well, just as early as possible, really, just to get the squeeze settled. I don't know if it'll be a sort of first team, someone that's going to be playing every game because of and Liam Scales and how highly thought of he is by Jim Goodwin, and obviously the capabilities of McCrory too at centre back. But I think if Bates goes, definitely it would be good to have another sort of experienced defender in there.
Yeah, another point that Paul Donaldson's been making in the comments as well is that, of course, if we keep a clean sheet on Sunday, we'd be the only team to go through the whole group stage without conceding a goal. So I'm sure that would be a nice feather in the cap for our defence, especially after how we performed last season in terms of the clean sheets capabilities. But to go back to the Stirling Albion game, one of the comments that I kind of took away from Jim Goodwin after the match was the understanding and partnerships he's looking to develop, which maybe does hint that Liam Scales will play on Sunday, because that is the partnership he wants to see develop at centre back. He was excited about the development of Ramadani and Ross McCrory in the middle of the pitch as well, but also alongside Scales and Stewart, getting KR Reykjavik to understand his two centre backs. Now, that for me was another important comment, because it seemed to me an indication that KR Reykjavik might be the number one going into the league games.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably the way it was intended, the way that you took it. I think I'm quite happy with it. Obviously, we've not seen him actually properly tested yet at all, really. He made a good save against Peterhead where he flew across the goal there. Let's tip it wider over the bar. Let's see how he does against Championship, against Premiership opposition, also Championship, if he gets tested a little bit more this coming weekend. But it is important. I think it's good that he's made that decision early, I suppose, because you can get the chance to sort of develop those understandings and those partnerships and know sort of how the way each other plays and things like that. So I'm quite happy that's been made early. Whether it's the right decision, we'll soon see, I'm sure. But at least it's sort of set in stone for now that that's the way it's going to be, just for developing knowing how each other's going to play, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we're looking at this from an Aberdeen perspective, but of course, Raith come to Pittodrie knowing, as I said, a win by 2 goals would see them top the group and progress to the next round. How do you think Raith look at this game? Do they look to kind of sit in and frustrate Aberdeen and then hit us on the counter? You've already highlighted Zanata, who caused us problems last year, Ethan Ross, who I'm definitely assuming is coming to Pittodrie with a point to prove, given things didn't work out the way I'm sure he would hope for. Obviously, Ian Murray now in charge at Raith, a successful season at Airdrie last season, and he's taken Dylan Easton with him as well. I'm sure Dylan Easton, who is attracting a lot of suitors from higher up in Scottish football, will be looking to show what he's capable of as well this Sunday. So, Raith certainly do have players in the forward area that can look to exploit an Aberdeen defence that, as we've said, is maybe not being tested as much as we'd like. And this will be the first possible real test, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll sort of see similar sort of levels of setting up as maybe seen in the other games, certainly initially. But Raith will know full well that they're capable of beating Aberdeen. Obviously, we're a very different side as last season. But maybe that'll be playing on mind. That'll certainly give them confidence in those attacking areas. Definitely that they can make things happen. I think they will probably sort of try and sit in a little bit more and try and hit us on the counter attack. Obviously, with those just 3 players, especially mentioned that they are capable of making things happen in that forward areas. I think it'll be interesting, but I'm hoping that Aberdeen can sort of counter act that and just sort of suffocate them from the off. And because otherwise, I know there will be thoughts creeping in of last season of what happened, and it'll be a very, very. It could get a little bit nervy, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And I think the point that Scott Matthew makes in the comments as well, that they will be a step up in terms of opposition. But Calum, I think like yourself, he's also confident of a strong performance. And of course, that Bojan will be involved. Of course, him arriving at Cormac Park today, being involved in training. Look to see how many minutes he'll get on Sunday. But I've just spoken there about the qualities that Raith maybe possess in the forward areas, and speaking about the defensive side of Aberdeen. Kaiser's been in the comments a lot today on the live, saying that we need a left back before the Celtic game. So Mason and Hancock's been playing there just now. Jim Goodwin coming out in the press saying that Jack McKenzie is likely to be fit for that game. Of course, we know what Jack McKenzie's recent injuries have been like, so how fit he will be for that. But one maybe to put to you more, because obviously I wasn't at the game on Tuesday, was what your thoughts were on Jaden Richardson, because he's made a good point here and says we currently don't, there's no cover for Richardson at right back either just now. I think that's a legitimate point. We don't have an out-and-out right back to cover that position.
Mm-hmm.
And to go on the point that Jim Goodwin has been speaking about, understandings and partnerships, you don't want to be breaking that Ramadani-McCrory partnership up to just keep, putting Ross McCrory back into the defence because we haven't covered those positions.
No, absolutely not. And Jim Goodwin also mentioned that he thinks we're still light in midfield, and then if McCrory then has to go and cover it right back, then we're in that area, obviously, with lots of rumours about who are going to sign in there. I think in an ideal world, we could get someone that could play both left back and right back. But obviously, people who do that to a high level are very, very hard to come by unless we go and sign Richard Foster again, which would be a laugh, I'm sure. I don't know if that'll be the priority right now, but I would like to see someone as cover. I think Jane Richardson will be obviously the number one choice going forward. Well, clearly he's the only proper right back at the club right now, and looks good going forward, poses a threat, good energy, pretty powerful runner, very, very quick. Delivery's okay. Unlucky not to have an assist against Peterhead when Ross McCrory's goal got chalked off. Still question marks defensively. Decision making looks a little bit off, but I think that'll be more understanding as well, given his young age. I think someone maybe as cover there might not be a bad option, but if we can improve the centre mid area, then maybe having sort of McCrory as that backup option at right back isn't so bad.
Yeah, well, I suppose just now as well, with Connor Barron being one of 5 players not to see any competitive minutes so far this season, it's kind of maybe posing that question more, because if you slotted Ross McCrory back into defence, Connor Barron obviously just now hasn't played competitively this season, could fit into that midfield alongside Ramadani. However, obviously we had that closed doors game against Falkirk last weekend. Jim Goodwin in the press saying that Connor Barron picked up a bit of a further knock to his knee injury that he picked up against Bucky Thistle, which kind of begs the question why you play a player with a bit of a knee injury on a plastic pitch. It doesn't seem like the smartest of moves. So hypothetically speaking, if Connor Barron is out for a couple of months, not just a couple of weeks, you've just said there maybe we are short in midfield. That is going to be maybe an area of more priority over our right back, as we've got that potential cover there in Ross McCrory, or as BCRL says in the comments, Connor McLennan could, I suppose, fill in there at right back, which maybe does heighten the need that we do need cover.
I think that, all right, cover as a winger. As a right back, blimey, that's when we know things will be desperate. But it's been seen before at Pittodrie, so let's hope that's
maybe
happen.
Maybe not as desperate as Can't Be Bothered's comment saying we need to bring back Jack Gurr.
No, that would be interesting. Mainly just so we could say we've got the moves like Jack Gurr. I'd be behind that, to be honest.
But on the issue about Connor Barron being out injured just now, does that heighten the need to look at midfields? Obviously, Jamie McGrath's name's been mentioned a good few times. There's the guy from Fleetwood, who, when you messaged yesterday, I was like, who the hell are you speaking about? And of course, the Connor Ronan saga that just doesn't seem to be going away.
Yeah, I think we will see sort of one of the more creative. I mean, whether that will be Ronan McGrath or someone else, I don't know. And both those sides going on for a very, very long time right now, and still not really budging on it. So I think with one of them or someone else coming in, then we are more stacked in that midfield. They obviously still got Dante Polvara as well, so then that does maybe afford a chance to move McCrory at centre back or right back in need of cover, obviously with when Barron's fit once again. And Shaden Morris, the man in the thumbnail, a winger from Fleetwood, 20 years old, apparently very, very quick. Right now, looking like his end product, not so great. Last season, 40 appearances, only 4 in all competitions, provided 2 goals, 2 assists, which is not a great productivity, but that is in a Fleetwood team that finished 20th in League One, I believe, which is 1 spot above the relegation. So perhaps that is why maybe not the service was maybe there, maybe not quite the end product on the quality of his deliveries or whatever. But that's the man that is in the thumbnail if you're interested. And rumours that Aberdeen and Hibs battling out for him. Which, imagine my shock. There wouldn't be a transfer window without one of them. And rumours of a £500,000 fee, which I think is a lot for someone who's relatively still unproven at that level. Obviously with lots of time to improve at 20 years old. But Glenn, what do you think about perhaps bringing in another sort of forward slasher to give a little bit more competition, I suppose? And I think Jim Goodwin has mentioned that he would like someone in those areas.
Yeah, well, I think it's, we've been saying it for the last few weeks on this show that is the area we would like to see kind of developed. Obviously, we don't really know what Goodwin has in mind for Majowski. I think you tweeted out today that he kind of prefers to work with a striker and maybe in behind. So whether that is linked up with Christian Jimenez or if he moves out to a wing and is allowed to cut in. Vicente's worked quite well in that number 10 role so far this season. He seems to have a new lease of life in that position rather than a winger. Again, that does leave us short. Matty Kennedy's, come into some good form, but does that form maintain when we go up against the Premiership teams? So yeah, definitely do think we need to address that creativity side of the squad. And to go back to what we discussed on last week's show about Jim Goodwin saying we need quality, not quantity. We want to make sure that anything coming off the bench is of equal quality to what's already on the pitch. I do agree that the fee seems quite steep, but of course, it's been quite well documented that Aberdeen have, come in for some money this summer. So maybe teams holding us a bit to ransom, but I suppose if we're competing with Hibs, at least we don't need to pay out a fine for fielding an ineligible player just now. So maybe we do have a bit of a bonus on that front as well. And of course, Scott Brown now being the Fleetwood manager, maybe there's something that we can negotiate there with. And I do, of course, know he does have that Hibs connection, but interesting to see how that one develops. Of course, the Connor Ronan one, I think Hearts dropped out of the race. For Connor Ronan, they're going to focus on other targets. My only concern around Ronan just now is that our eggs are all in that basket and we're letting it drag out for too long just now. I did like the point you made on Dante Polvara. Apologies to Dante, I did kind of forget about him when I was trying to wrap my brain at who could come into midfield for that game against Celtic if we see Ross McCrory drop back. So certainly one, if we're trying to get the deal done before Celtic, I would like it done early next week so that they do have as much time to work with the team, also work with the forwards to get that partnership built up. Because, to go back to that episode I did with Joe on Luis Lopez, was that he, during his time in Benfica, had good understanding with the wingers. Now, that's not going to come overnight in Aberdeen. So that's going to require time to develop. And it's going to be the same for any winger coming into Aberdeen. So I'd want that done as early as possible if they're going to be featuring next week.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I would like as much business done as early as possible. I have been very, very impressed with how much I've done as early as we have so far this transfer window. I think it's always probably unrealistic to expect sort of everyone to be in the door to come the start of the league season. There always is still 1, 2, maybe 3 that after the start because it's hard to get these deals done. But I have been impressed so far with as many that have come in the door so far. And Jim Goodwin said he hopes that there will be more before that Celtic game. So that would be excellent. Well, that is an interesting point from Can't Be Bothered, who says, if we sign Ronan, could it be detrimental to Barron's game time and development? Glenn, your thoughts? I'm asking you the questions now. What's going on?
And I know, Chekhov's role reversal here. I don't think it would be detrimental to Connor Barron's game time because I would think they would be playing in different positions. I see Barron as more in the middle of the pitch, where I think Ronan would either be out on the wing or in behind a striker. You can play Connor in that kind of sitting midfielder role, just sitting in front of the back four or play him in the middle. As I said last year, a lot on the show in that kind of Billy Gilmore role, taking the ball in midfield and looking to recycle the possession either out to the wide areas or forward to someone like Christian Ramirez. So I don't think so. But I suppose maybe the thing that could be detrimental to his game time is how well the McCrory-Ramadani partnership does develop. And then where does he fit into that team? But as I think you said, it's exciting to see us have all these positive dilemmas to think on rather than last season. It was kind of a foregone conclusion what our starting 11 was going to look like. So pleasant headaches, I'm sure, for Jim Goodwin to have. But there have, of course, been players that haven't received any competitive minutes, Connor Barron being one of them. But Joe Lewis, Conor McLennan, David Bates and Kieran Ngwenya are the others who have yet to feature competitively for the Dons this season. Joe Lewis, I think, is quite understandable. He's getting Keller Roos, as we said, part of that partnership and getting him to develop that understanding with the centre-backs. But David Bates has been linked with a move away in the last couple of days. Clubs such as Ipswich, Bristol City and Derby County rumoured to be interested in the centre-back. Would you be opposed to seeing David Bates leave in this transfer window? Because I know one thing you said to me yesterday was your concern would leave us a bit short.
Yeah, I think if David Bates was to leave in this transfer window, then we would absolutely need to sign another centre-back, and ideally we'd have someone lined up for that. It's a weird one because at times David Bates, when he's partnered with McCrory on the left-hand side, when McCrory's playing on the left-hand side and David Bates was allowed to play on his more favoured right, he looked actually like a decent defender. He looked competent, and then as soon as he moves to that left-hand side, like when he came on against Brecon, there's mistakes slipping in. I'm sure he is on a big wage, and if he is going to move somewhere else, maybe get a little bit of a fee, I don't know, or get his big wages off the bill, and that allows us to improve elsewhere, or get someone else in who's maybe a little bit more confident playing on either side. And I certainly wouldn't be against it, but I think essential that someone else comes in the door before, if not pretty soon after, if David Bates was to leave.
Yeah, I think the thing with David Bates' departure, I saw a few people defending his confidence last season, the way he was treated at Hamburg and then coming into a very fragile defence like ours was never going to be easy for him, which is a fair point. But yes, he scored a couple of goals for us, but by and large, defensively, I didn't really see much to encourage me that we could be keeping him. And I think the fact that Jack Milne has featured this season ahead of David Bates tells you what Jim Goodwin thinks on David Bates' future of the club.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very a good point, to be fair, and one I didn't even really think of too much. But at the same time, although there is Jack Milne, and as you mentioned to me the other day, there's a potential recall clause on Evan Towler, I just think I wouldn't like to be left relying on those two kids, because then if things go wrong, that's a lot of pressure on their shoulders when they're very inexperienced and not fully developed yet. So I'd just like another option in there as well, in addition to.
Yeah, and that option not to be putting Ross McCrory in for the rest of the season. I suppose that would just be cover because, of course, you would have Scales and Stewart set to be your main pairing, apart from when we play Celtic, of course. I suppose we'll look at the other news that has come around the club. Obviously, Duke signed his 3-year deal, £400,000. As Joe said to us on that last episode, he feels that is a good investment that the club have made. Obviously you've seen him in action. We discussed that at the start of the episode, with Benfica not retaining a percentage for future fees in terms of sell-on clauses. It is one that I think a lot of us will look on with interest, is to see how he does develop in this squad.
Yep, certainly. It'll be very, very interesting. He looks like he brings something different, as I mentioned, sort of at the top of the show. I think, well, it's weird because he's sort of saying that's good value for what he paid, but then to us it's like, wow, we spent a transfer fee. Oh my God. I suppose in the grand scheme of things, relatively a cheaper transfer fee. And if you consider what sort of we've sold players for, if he does go on to be brilliant for us, as sort of Joe's maybe expecting, then we maybe can go and sort of get a similar transfer fee to what we've just done with sort of Lewis Ferguson, perhaps more like. It'll be very, very interesting. It's exciting. He's raw. He's a young player. He's got time to improve, though. He's got good, experienced players around him to learn from, sort of Marley Watkins as well. A player that I sort of keep forgetting about a bit as well. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be an Aberdeen fan, and exciting to see how Duke develops, and also just exciting that we've got someone that doesn't have their actual name on the back of their top. I just love that.
Yeah, it is. I'm sure it'll be a good one for the club shop. I'm sure if he continues to perform well, that'll be a popular name to go on the back of the shirts. Tom Ritchie has left the club to join Queen of the South on loan. Interesting to see him move from Highland League to League One, and I think it's a good move. Obviously, Gordon Marshall, who you'll have worked with at Cormac Park previously, is on the coaching staff at Palmerston, and League One is certainly shaping up to be a very competitive league next season with some of the teams involved there. So I think he'll definitely, be well tested at Queen's, and it'll be interesting to see again how he develops over the course of next season.
I saw someone mention that they've got a pretty decent goalkeeper there already as well. So it'll be interesting to see the competition between them as well, which I think will only be a good thing, probably for Tom Ritchie, because even if he doesn't get the number 1 jersey, then regardless, he's still competitive, pushing, and he'll probably still get his chance throughout the season as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he takes it. I think it's a good move, a very good level. I mean, Queen of the South, probably someone who, well, definitely someone who'll be looking towards getting that promotion, whether that's automatic or through the playoffs. So it'll be a good learning curve for Tom Ritchie, in my opinion. And as you said, in a very, very competitive League One. I was looking at it the other day, actually, sort of ahead of all the seasons kicking off, and there's a lot of relatively sort of, you'd probably call them big clubs, like big championship clubs in there. And, Dunfermline and Falkirk as well, and then Kelty Hearts. We'll see how they do. It's going to be an interesting one. I'm quite excited for that as well, to keep an eye on.
Yeah, a lot of kind of local teams there will be, I'm sure it'll be a very competitive league. Obviously, with doing these lives, we get a lot of you commenting on the show, interacting, and we do appreciate that because it helps generate points of conversation that maybe some people, when they're listening back on the audio later on, are thinking, why are they not mentioning that? And David Attenberg in the comments says we should speak about the dropping of Joe Lewis. I suppose, Calum, what are your thoughts then on Joe Lewis not featuring competitively for the team this season? Are you kind of surprised that Kellaroos has come in straight away to be number 1?
I am a little bit surprised that he's come straight in to be number 1. It's not something against necessarily. I think, given sort of some of the percentages that came out with Joe Lewis last season, about the lack of save percentage, it's not surprising. I think we've all sort of seen a downturn in his form. I don't think it was helped by terrible defending in front of him, to be fair, giving gilt edge opportunities that probably you or I could still finish off. I don't know. It's a bit of a sad one, though. Because he has been brilliant for us over the years. But just because Kellaroos is starting with number 1 this season doesn't mean that Joe Lewis will be out of the picture forever. Because if Kellaroos does make a mistake, which Derby fans has sort of warned us of, I'm sure Joe Lewis will be pushing, ready and raring to go now that he's got competition, not just Gary Woods, to go and get that number 1 jersey. And I'm sure he'll come in with a point to prove if he does do so. So it's exciting, I think, actually having 2 goalkeepers that are capable of wearing the number 1 jersey. Well, despite the league's number rules, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I appreciate how much faith you have in my finishing ability, because you definitely didn't see me at Pataudry in that challenge at halftime, because I was absolutely dreadful. It was
Hey,
probably like our finishing at times last season.
hey, you've got a left foot. Any player with a left foot just looks better, all right?
Yeah, I just don't have a right foot. That's the main problem. Red Yeti commenting saying that you need to be scouting out a versatile defender on Champman Football Manager to replace Bates, someone like Isaac Okoronkwo. So I'll let you do your research later on this evening into him.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, no idea who he is, but I'm actually I will have a look at Isaac Okoronkwo. I hope we don't sign him though, because that's a difficult name to say.
Yeah. I'll give you something to do on the train to Kirkcaldy at the weekend anyway. In other news from Pataudry, the club have announced that they will be doing stadium tours, something I think that is a good revenue earner for the club. And of course, it is revenue generated because the club are charging £10 for adults and £5 for under 16s, with those that take part in the tour receiving a 10% ticket for discount in the club shop after the tour. I think this has been a long time coming, Calum, and really something that the club should have probably been doing for a couple of years at least. A good way of making money, because I remember a few years back, Joey Harper, I was at a lunch and he said the club don't make money at Pataudry Monday to Friday. It's only on a match day. So this will be a good way of revenue coming into the club when match days aren't on.
Absolutely, I think people will be looking to do that. I mean, I don't think when I was a mascot many moons ago, I had a little look around Pataudry, but other than that, very, very minimal sort of experience having a look around Pataudry. And £10 for an adult, £5 for kids. I think that's pretty reasonable. I mean, especially in the school holidays as well, people will definitely be looking for things to do by this point. After sort of a few weeks of kids being around the house, I'm sure. So I think it's a very, very good move and a chance to make a little bit of money. And it's good to see they're sort of starting to look into those things. It's something that Rob Wicks mentioned, that they're going to look sort of for other sort of ways to make money, throughout the week with the new stadium. So it's good to see they're starting to implement it now before the move, if it ever happens.
Yeah, and well, I suppose we'll plug that episode as well if you want to hear more on the new stadium thoughts and in general revenue matchday experience. My chat with Rob Wicks is also available in the back catalogue of episodes, an in-depth chat on the proposed beach stadium plans and what will come from them as well. Other announcement this week was the 2-year partnership with Icelandic club KR Reykjavik, the oldest and most successful club in Iceland. It is a second deal of its kind after Aberdeen signed a deal with Californian outfit All Stars United. It is a commercial deal which aims to attract joint sponsors and commercial partners, but also gives Reykjavik players and coaches the opportunity to travel to Cormac Park to use our facilities, with Reykjavik hosting a summer football camp over in Iceland. Interesting to see, Calum, how this partnership develops, and big credit to Rob Wicks and Robbie Hederman on getting this deal signed and agreed, because, we've seen just now, this transfer window especially, Aberdeen exploring different markets. Mark Bowles, who came on ahead of the Breidablik game last season, was very vocal and supportive of Aberdeen looking into the Icelandic talent pool, and maybe this is the first step into doing so.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It was one that was sort of completely out of the blue. Maybe not the Juventus link that was rumoured a few months ago. However, I think it can only be a good thing. Obviously, the most successful team in Iceland, as you mentioned. And that's what I'm most excited about, the scouting sort of aspect that it adds. Because not only in Iceland, I suppose they'll have more eyes on Scandinavia, sort of in general, in terms of, just location. Sort of suiting them. So if there are players that maybe could come in and do a job for us, I'm sure there will be tip-offs. And likewise here, I mean, we might see some loans even going out there. Who knows? For the younger players, that would be a learning curve for sure, being shipped out to to Iceland. I think it can only be a very, very good thing. And, you see a lot of the big clubs have these sort of links like this, and it's nice to see us sort of starting to move in that direction and add to our bow, if that is it. Is it another string to the bow? I'm trying really hard.
Yeah, you're very trying. I'll give you that. But no, I suppose Iceland does have a lot better indoor facilities compared to Scotland. There's always been a lot talked about. You look at the rise of their national team and how quickly they came to prominence compared to Scotland, albeit I think they're maybe just suffering a bit of a lull just now, although we're not exactly ones to talk in terms of international football. But certainly on and off the pitch, something that can be really interesting. And if they want to develop a regular flight between Aberdeen and Reykjavik, then I'll be here for that as well, because by far the best city that I've been to, Iceland and Reykjavik.
Can't say I've ever been, so it's something I would look into as well. So maybe if they can get that, that would be good. I'm sure that's not on their forefront of their minds, but if anyone's tuning in, fancy it.
Yeah, well, we know that Dave does like to watch a show, so maybe he can arrange a stopover via Keflavik, is where the airport is. So Atlanta via Keflavik to Aberdeen, and that covers loans for all three clubs.
What a blooming tour that is! It's interesting that they did mention Atlanta United link in the article as well after Darren Eales left or went to join Newcastle United, and he was the one that was on our board. Is he still technically on our board? They've not mentioned that yet. But interestingly, they did mention that the Atlanta link is sort of still in place.
Yeah, they've not. Well, the club Aberdeen haven't officially mentioned anything about Darren being removed from our board. So interesting to see if that gets announced. Dave, maybe want to get that press release fired up. Again, more comments. We'll just finish rounding up the news. The Aberdeen's away trip to Celtic next weekend is fully sold out. The club selling out its 700 ticket allocation. With adults paying over £30 in 700 tickets, Calum, I don't know what's more impressive, how young our away support will be, or the fact that the tickets sold out so quickly.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Glen.
Yes, if you know, you know.
It is very impressive that we have sold out our allocation. I think, over a week in advance. I mean, I'm sure people are just eager to get that season underway, regardless of the opposition. It would have been a good turnout. But regardless, always the thought when you're sort of I go to Parkhead and there's a possibility of an absolute thumping. Sometimes that does put people off, but not the case this time. So very, very impressive. And hopefully it'll be boisterous, and hopefully the team will give us something to cheer about, because I'm not looking forward to the potential come down from like this high I've been on all summer so far. And then the 31st of July. So let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, let's hope it doesn't happen. As I said to the folk in my work today, who asked what I was doing for my birthday, I said, going to the football. I said, at least the day out will be the good side of it, in case the football doesn't live up to expectation. Lee Seymour in the comments as well, asking what happened to the Dutch defender we were looking at from ADO Den Haag. He signed for Go Ahead Eagles. He's also asking where is the best sticky toffee pudding from, because I know Vicente has been looking for that. So if anyone tuning into this episode at a later date knows of where the best sticky toffee pudding can be found, get it in the comments on YouTube or tag us and Vicente on Twitter. Of course, you can find us on Twitter at RTG_podcast. I'm sure Vicente will be keen to try out as many sticky toffee puddings as possible and find the best one in Aberdeen. And to be fair, we're both partial to one as well, so we'll take any recommendations that come.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We'll test it out for Vinny first and then get back to him, just so we've got an excuse.
Yeah, you never know. Well, we're in discussions with Zoe, and that could be a good little content video we could do. Us trying sticky toffee pudding with Vicente.
Now, there's a video.
Yeah, well, as long as they've got a chef outfit that fits him after seeing what they put him in at the first boss outfit video, if you've watched that on Red TV yet.
Oh, bless him. I love Vinny to bits.
And then finally, because we've not laughed at Hibs enough yet on this episode, Paul Donaldson asks what are our thoughts on clubs forfeiting matches 3-0 for fielding suspended players in the League Cup. It's not just Hibs it's happened to, Elgin and Stranraer also this season, and Kilmarnock last. Well, Calum, what's your thoughts on that?
First of all, funny. Second of all, I think it was the right punishment. I think, regardless if there is some sort of issue with it, the team should still have the right things in place. I think for Elgin and Stranraer, they've got a little bit more of an excuse than the likes of Hibs and Kilmarnock. It would be typical if we then go on and cock it up after how much we've laughed about it, but it shouldn't be happening. Really, I mean, there's teams in sort of like junior divisions that keep a better track of those kind of things. I don't know how it happens at that level, but very, very comical, and I think the right punishment, really.
Yeah, kind of agree. A more degree of sympathy to the likes of Elgin and Stranraer, but
obviously,
obviously, but teams like Hibs that have full-time employees that look after these sort of things or should be on top of these things, got no excuse really. And for that to be the manner in which they exit the cup makes it all the funnier, to be honest. After how confident and they were last season, and it's quite funny that our resident Hibs fan that tunes into these lives has not made an appearance in the comments today. So it's obviously taking some time out this week, but there's been a lot to fit in, and Calum, we've managed to do it in just over an hour because we've been going through the comments. Pretty impressive. Past the time this Friday lunchtime for those of you that have joined us live, or past some time over the course of the weekend for those of you that are joining in later, maybe running the ball into the corner for those that are listening to the audio episode before they're finished this Friday afternoon. But thank you as always to everyone that has tuned in, interacted, liked, subscribed the video. We will be back next week looking back at the game against Raith and looking ahead to the Premiership opener against Celtic. We'll also have a wee bit of fun on the show as well. We'll do some predictions on the show, who we think the top goal scorer will be, who will be the most booked player in our team, amongst other categories that we will have. So something for you to keep an eye on, something for you guys also to interact with as well. Let us know your thoughts on who the candidates for those categories will be. But we've both got a busy social calendar next week, Calum. So date of release for that episode is TBC, I think it's fair to say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But regardless, hopefully, I'll have sort of some family bragging rights, I guess you call it now. With Caitlin's little brother being an avid Raith fan, I would like to get one over them after sort of the events of last season. So fingers crossed. I'm looking forward to predictions, getting everything underway. The big season finally starting after this little taster we've had. But thank you very much to everybody tuning in just once again. I think it's fair to say me and Glen have been slightly blown away sort of by the numbers we've been getting recently. I mean, look at us. It's mental. So thank you very much. It really is really, really, really means a lot to us. So thank you. I've said it a few times now, but it's bizarre.
Until next time, see you later.